Hello, I'd like to welcome you to This Dementia Life. I'm your host, Chuck McClatchy, and I live my dementia life with Alzheimer's disease. And in this, we have conversations with great people living with dementia and the phenomenal people caring about us. My guest today is Mandy Salomon. She's the co-founder and CEO of Mentia Incorporated. Welcome, Mandy, and thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure, Chuck. It's an absolute thrill to be on the show with you.
Okay, if you could just kind of tell us a little, maybe a little bit about your background. I know you've been very well educated and running a business, and I know how busy of a person you are, but go ahead.
Okay, well, it's a funny story, really, that I have brought my startup at an age when most people are shutting down opportunities. I decided to leave my country, Australia, and bring my what I think is a groundbreaking idea to the US, and specifically to San Francisco, where I could work with within the startup ecosystem, and bring the outcome of what was my Ph.D. that I finished in 2016 to market. And so my team and I are very highly motivated. We're on a mission to shift the static nature of therapy out of the sort of bricks and mortar silos of, say, a memory care facility or a long-term care residential community, and put it in the hands of frontline direct care staff and family caregivers, so that they can work with their loved one or their client with best practice dementia therapies that assist well-being at the point of care. So wherever they are, whenever help is needed, they can work with our tool on an iPad and find new points of communication with their loved one, and also assist that person fundamentally to help express the person that they are, with the idea that by them being able to do that, we build communication bridges and reduce some of the frustrations of not being able to express the sense of self that comes with a diagnosis or a dementia experience.
That's a unique background, and what drove you to pick this field that a lot of people are so afraid of because they don't understand it, and educating people on how to treat people with dementia is so difficult because there's these kind of conditions they expect us to be, but with every person being different. What kind of drove you towards that?
Well, I think a lot of people that are in the field of providing therapeutic activities for people with cognitive disabilities, they come to it from a therapeutic background. Now, I'm a little bit different, very different. I come from the creative arts, the creative media. And all my working life, I've been someone who's made theatre, made films, been in television dramas, produced things. I've had, in my own country, I've been, a columnist, writing ideas and trying to put crazy ideas into words. And so I had a bit of a life change in the, I think we call them the noughties, the 2000s. I went back to university to sort of reskill and rethink a bit, got involved in internet culture, digital thinking, digital media, and was working for a research center where I was looking at the way video games involve people in distributed teams coming together to solve problems, like World of Warcraft or the metaverse world's Second Life. I don't know if you've ever dabbled or gone into there, Chuck. And you've got people in there who I found had a lot of disabilities, physical disabilities. So they were saying things like, okay, I'm in a wheelchair, or I have multiple sclerosis, or I have all kinds of issues, you know, with my body that causes stigma in the actual world, but when I'm in these worlds, people accept me for who I am. And I actually feel more myself in these virtual worlds than I do in the actual world. And that for me was a really profound statement. I thought these people are handicapped by their bodies. Their bodies are letting them down. They know they can be a person that's not constrained by their physical self in these virtual worlds and be more themselves. That was profound. I thought, okay, so what happens if you've got a cognitive disability? Can you also be more yourself in such a world than you can in the actual world? And I started to explore it from an academic perspective, Chuck, you know, and I found that there were no people who had cognitive disabilities inside these worlds. So then I thought, well, why is that so? Maybe it's because these worlds are not configured for people who have, say, a memory impairment or some sort of, you know, trouble with executive decision making. You know, these worlds are not designed for such people. So how do we make a world that is suitable for someone with a cognitive disability so that they can be more themselves in the virtual world than they can in the actual world? And that's what set me on my doctoral research. What would a world look like? How should it be? What would motivate someone to be in such a world? And what would they need from the world in order to express aspects of their own lives? And so I did a deep dive into dementia from a cultural perspective, from a biomedical perspective, from a therapeutic and, you know, gerontological perspective, from a well-being perspective. I looked at all the theories, I looked at the science, and I spoke to a lot of people who were either diagnosed with, had a dementia diagnosis, people who were in senior living, people who had partners or, you know, family members that they were helping, and professional care staff. And I began to build with my team at the university this virtual world. And it was just a prototype. A lot of thinking went into it. A lot of not just the prototype, but, you know, the theories behind why someone would use such a world. And when that was finished, I decided to bring that to the US. So we call the world Deva World. And that pretty much brings you to the background and where we are, where we are today.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I know they always tell, you know, that it's come out now, you want people to interact, to use their brains. I play games on the internet. And it's hard to find games or any kind of interaction that is not maybe a little bit too complicated.
Right.
How did you work on getting the games where, you know, people with us who still want to try, but yet we don't get up to the frustration level where we want to quit?
Well, I think you've put your finger on right on the key point here, Chuck. If we think of dementia as a continuum, you know, people who have got, say, a mild cognitive impairment really want to use the internet to, the digital world, to keep doing what they've always done, but not necessarily have as many steps or make the process more simple as they, and that's great. But we actually look at a group of people who are no longer looking to do the things they've always done, but in simpler ways. We're looking to create experiences for people who have trouble expressing who they are because of the progress of their illness. And so we're looking at more of people in the moderate stage, if you will. I know it's hard to make categories and everybody's different and day one is different to day two, but people who typically are really struggling to do normal activities of daily living and have maybe gone beyond the mild, well, definitely have gone beyond the mild cognitive stage. So our world is really, it's not a game in the sense that a traditional game would be. With your own video gaming experience, you level up and you have, you acquire virtual loot, and you put yourself against all kinds of trials and tribulations, and it's terribly exciting. Our world is more about having stimuli inside the world that encourages someone with their finger to tap on the screen, because we think embodied cognition, being able to have a sense of agency by touching and tapping objects and have them do something, that is actually a very powerful way of building a sense of, I did that, I made that happen. Because unfortunately, as the illness progresses, people have less and less agency in the world around them. So in the virtual world, it's all about giving people agency rather than structuring a game-like activity. So it's more of an experience rather than a game, but it's built on a game platform.
That's amazing, because I know even now in the mild stages, when dealing with the frustration and understanding that there's so much stuff that we can't do, it sounds like the people would get kind of as satisfaction of accomplishing something, and I could see where that would be very helpful in eliminating the frustration that is just so prevalent, and it's so bad that it makes people want to give up and not try anything. So I think it's a brilliant idea. This is just amazing. How many people do you have working with you now?
We have a core team in San Francisco, in California, which is more on the business and marketing, and we have our CTO, our Chief Technology Officer, me as the CEO, and we have our partnerships director, all in San Francisco. Then we have our tech team in China and France. My CTO is actually French, and so he's in San Francisco, but he has his team there. And our China systems architect is an Australian who, actually Chinese, but Australian trained. I met him in Australia. He's now temporarily back in China. But what we don't have yet, Chuck, is a sales and marketing team. We do all that ourselves because we're a very young startup, and we are raising money. If anybody is listening and wants to contribute, we are raising money through investment to build our team. So to cut a long story short, we're a small, very agile team. We punch above our weight. We're working with home care agencies, long-term, CCRCs, and just standard long-term care communities. But we're building all the time our network of users. And there was something I wanted to mention about, what's crucial about the crucial piece, which I'd like to make the point, is that this is not something that a player does on their own. It's something they do with a care partner, and the care partner's role is to support them to play in a way that's optimal for them. So there's no one right way to play. And we see it as a system, Chuck, a system between me, the player, and what's happening on the screen. We call that intra-world engagement. And me and my care partner and what happens between us as a result of playing the game. And we call that extra-world engagement. And the two work together. So the intra feeds the extra feeds the intra, and we get a sort of a fulsome, wholesome, holistic care system that happens because of Deva World. But we do absolutely think this is something that people should share. And when they share it together, there's a lot of great things that come out of it, because they learn a lot from each other, and they break down the silos. They help each other. There's a consensual thing. Some people can't tap on the screen very easily, so the care partner will do that with them, and so they're holding hands. And because it's a multimedia space, there might be music. They end up putting their arms around each other. All this sort of stuff is part of well-being. So it's not just, the tool amplifies.
That's incredible, because I've seen videos of people who are kind of in a seems to be a vegetative state, and they put headphones on them and let them listen to music. And by doing that, it awakens something. And I think I could see kind of a parallel with people who want to communicate but don't know how, and then being able to have a platform where somebody can help them communicate, you know, to build maybe a little bit of confidence in themselves, and helping that it's not a terminal world, because getting word out that you can live a productive life and a happy life with dementia is hard sometimes, because people have all these pre-notions of exactly what's going to happen. So there's no reason to do anything, just put them away and let them go. And to have people like you working for us is just incredible. You know, to have people interact and have that ability is amazing. And thank you so much for doing this. If a caregiver watches this podcast, what information would you give them to have them look into this?
Well, go to our website. You'll find all the links there. You must have a tablet device, a touchscreen tablet. Touch is very important for the player, and that's the way it's from a research perspective. Touch, gesture, pointing is what we call a pre-reflective response. It's something that's ingrained in us since the very first seeds of civilization. You gesture, you point, and these are things that stay with us for a long, long time, even when we have a more advanced dementia. So touch is really important, to look at something. Now, all an individual does is, all a player does is touch on an object, and that triggers a response. So they must have a tablet. They must have Wi-Fi. And when you sign up, you then go to the dashboard on our website, and that allows you to create a player profile. So say if you're working with your mum, you would say, my mum is, Julie Watson, and then you fill out some biographical details about her. Now, why that's important is because if somebody comes into the home to look after your mum while you're away, or you're at the doctor's or whatever, they can just look on their iPhone, their smartphone, or go to the iPad or any device and just check, okay, so I can see Julie she's had 4 kids, she's lived all her life in St. Louis, she loves, to cook, blah, blah, whatever. And you start to develop a life story around this person even before you sit down to play. So the care partner would set up the player profile and then drag and drop stuff into that person's player profile, such as photographs that are meaningful. It doesn't have to be snaps of my wedding. It can be mum's first car, or this is a walk that she used to go on. Here's her favorite architect. It could be anything that is meaningful to mum in this case. And then, because Wi-Fi, when the profile is set up and you include music in that, you then go to the app, which you download from the App Store. It can be Google Play, it can be Apple, Apple App Store, and you download it onto the tablet. Up comes the opening screen. You type in the same login and password that you used when you were at the dashboard, and everything that you've loaded into mum's profile, objects, digital artifacts, images, music, that will be inside mum's Deva World. So then when you and she sit down together, you can see, if you touch the family album, you can scroll together through her photographs and talk about them. You can go to the record player, play the music she likes. You can tap on the painting and up come some images that she might like to decorate on the wall. You go to the bedroom and you can change the furnishings. You go to the garden, you can plant plants, you can play with the cat. I mean, there's just lots of things you can do. So that's what the caregiver does, is they set up the player profile, and then they sit in a quiet place. Now, this is something that I'd love your feedback on, Chuck, because we know that family caregivers are under a lot of stress, and they have to be in a position where they're prepared to say, this is a session. This is a session for me and for mum, whoever, and we're doing this together. And it's not about sitting her in front of this while I do the washing. It's not about, you know, it's not about something that we've got noise outside and I'm running in and out. No, it's a dedicated session that we're going to do together. We're going to work our way through this world, and you're going to tell me about the world if you, in whatever way is appropriate to you. But this is my opportunity to come into your world. And so I think if caregivers have this sense of, this is my time to come into mum's world, rather than, mum, you're going to be doing what I need you to sit here while I do X, Y, and Z. No. So it is an ask for a caregiver to put that time aside. But we ask them to do that, or someone else that is part of mum's care circle, whether it be someone that is comes into the home, whether it be a relative, but it is a dedicated time.
Well, that's incredible. I know for me, having that interaction would help so much, and we could go on talking for a long time on this, but we have kind of run out of time. I want to thank you so much. I know you're a very, very, very busy lady, but please keep doing the work you're doing. And actually, on behalf of the millions of families that deal with dementia, I know you probably don't hear it too often, but thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts to have something out there to help families deal with this and make it an easier journey on both families and the person living with the disease. So thank you so very much, and thank you for being with me today.
Chuck, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to meet you in person when I come to the conference later this year. Bye-bye for now. Thank you again.
I'd like to thank everybody for being with us today on This Dementia Life. My guest was Mandy Salomon. Please, if you like these podcasts, there's more podcasts on our website, daanow.org/podcast. And that's it for now. And please remember, the brain may forget, but the heart remembers. I'll see you next time. Bye.